Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt completely paralyzed just staring at a restaurant menu or absolutely drained by the sheer volume of things you have to figure out at work, well, you're in the right place. Today, we're taking a deep dive into how to pick decision models and cut through all that noise. The goal? To transform you from someone battling analysis paralysis into a tactical commander of your choices. Because decision-making, it's not some innate talent you're just born with. It's a learnable skill. And today, we're going to learn it. Okay, let's dive into this cognitive roadmap that's going to help us funnel all those overwhelming choices down to precise, methodical actions. We'll be covering the daily decision overload, how to filter out the noise, diagnosing your problem type, picking your decision model, challenging your hidden assumptions, and finally, how to commit, act, and learn. Let's start right at the top with part 1, the daily decision overload and the sheer staggering volume of choices we face before we even realize we're making them. 35,000. Yeah, you heard that right. That is the staggering number of decisions an average adult makes every single day. And it starts the exact second you hit the snooze button or, when you decided to click on this explainer. Now, while most of these choices run quietly on autopilot, some create literal forks in the road that can dramatically impact your time, your money, and your relationships. So our brains basically operate on two totally different speeds. System 1, that's your autopilot. It's fast, it's emotion-driven, and it relies on what we've already learned. System 2, on the other hand, is logical, deliberate, and a lot slower. Now, when we're rushing, we just naturally default to that emotional System 1. But to make genuinely good decisions, we have to create a pause to actually engage that deliberate System 2. To put this in perspective, a 2013 study actually found that failing to pause and reassess changing variables was the leading cause of fatal road crossing errors. It's crazy, but it proves why even a micropause can literally be life-saving. Moving on to part 2. Our first step in the funnel is weeding out the low-stakes noise so we can save our deep thinking for what actually matters. We really have to separate urgency from actual importance. And we do this by looking at two things: reversibility and consequence. Think about it. If a decision is low stakes and you can easily reverse it, just delegate it or use a simple rule of thumb to decide right then and there. What if it's consequential but still reversible? Well, that's experimental. You can just run a small test. But if a decision is highly consequential and irreversible, now that is a critical choice. That's the one where you need to invest your full, undivided attention. By filtering everything through this matrix, you stop wasting your precious cognitive energy on those loud, urgent, but ultimately unimportant choices. Which brings us to part 3, diagnosing your problem type. Because before pulling a decision framework out of your tool belt, you've got to accurately diagnose what kind of beast you're dealing with. First up, we've got critical problems. Now, these are situations operating under certainty, or at least calculable risk, meaning you actually have enough information to act on. So the key takeaway here is that these situations demand clear direction and speed over perfection. In a critical problem scenario, dragging your feet and delaying will actually cost you a lot more than just making an imperfect choice. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have wicked problems. And man, these are tough. They resist clean solutions entirely. They're deeply ambiguous, the goals are fuzzy, and the outcomes totally unpredictable. There is literally no right answer here. There are only trade-offs. So for wicked problems, you've got to lean heavily on creativity and intuition, alongside your analysis, to aim for what is, surprisingly often, just the least worst outcome. And finally, offering some much-needed relief for our tired brains, tame problems. These are your standard, programmed, recurring situations where established rules or procedures already exist. Please, do not reinvent the wheel here. Just borrow proven solutions from other people and save your cognitive horsepower for those wicked problems we just talked about. All right, part 4, picking your decision model. This is the climax of our explainer. How to perfectly match a model to the specific problem we just diagnosed. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how to equip your mental tool belt. Notice just how specific these models are. A decision matrix is perfect if you're comparing multiple options against strict criteria. The OODA loop, that is perfectly matched for fast-moving, really dynamic environments. If you just need to prioritize tasks, you'd use the impact effort matrix. Then you've got the SPADE framework, which is designed specifically for those high-stakes, stakeholder-heavy decisions. And finally, Synefin is there to help you wrap your head around deep, deep complexity. But I gotta warn you, forcing one single framework onto literally every problem you face completely undermines its value. You can't just use a hammer for everything. Instead, you should use this simple 4-factor cheat sheet to select the perfect tool. Just ask yourself, what's the required speed? How high is the uncertainty? What's the reversibility of the choice? And who are the stakeholders involved? Filtering your choices through these 4 factors ensures you never grab that hammer when what you actually need is a scalpel. Moving right along to part 5, challenge your hidden assumptions. We have to test the boundaries and constraints of our chosen path before we finalize it. Because look, once you've picked a model and a path forward, you can't just run blindly ahead. You've got to test your constraints first. Before accepting any limitation at face value, hit it with this reframe. If this constraint could be relaxed or removed, then the effect on my decision would be what? It's a super powerful question because it reveals whether a boundary is truly immovable or if it's just something you've kind of assumed to be true all along. And let me tell you, hidden assumptions are incredibly dangerous. Why? Because they operate totally invisibly in the background. And worse, they're almost always overly optimistic, which means when they inevitably fail, the impact is highly negative. But you can pressure test them by asking 3 specific questions. 1, how likely is this validity to hold? 2, what is the impact or the potential damage of failure? And 3, what's the urgency, meaning when would the failure actually surface? Honestly, walking through these 3 boxes is absolutely crucial to prevent your own unchecked optimism from sinking your plans. You also have to separate hard facts from mere opinions, and a great way to do this is using Alex Edmond's ladder of misinference. You just ask yourself, is the data actually accurate? Is it representative, or has it been cherry-picked? Is it conclusive enough to rule out alternatives? And finally, does the context actually apply to your specific situation? To truly protect yourself against blind spots on this ladder, it's a really good idea to enlist a mentor or a coach. You need that external perspective to surface those implicit beliefs that you've literally never even thought to question. And that brings us to our final phase, part 6, commit, act, and learn. It's time to pull the trigger and extract some long-term value from the outcome. See, even when a choice seems obviously superior, you still have to evaluate the risk of actually acting by weighing the potential adverse consequences. Think about it like a grid. If a risk has high probability and high seriousness, well, you've got to act urgently to mitigate that. But if it has a low probability, yet high seriousness, that's when you prepare contingencies. You always have to look at the downsides just to make sure you are never caught off guard. But here is the critical flip side. You also have to weigh the risk of not acting. I mean, just look at Blockbuster. Their failure to partner with Netflix cost them a $200 billion opportunity. $200 billion. So the crucial takeaway here is that choosing to do nothing, that is still a heavily consequential decision. Every single choice, including absolute inaction, carries consequences that will outlive the decision itself. So to wrap up execution, you really just need to follow 3 steps. First, take a concrete step immediately. This turns your choice into actual momentum and stops you from overthinking. Second, journal your decision-making process. I know, it sounds simple, but writing down your reasoning forces that deliberate System 2 thinking to switch on, and it prevents future cognitive bias. And third, treat the result as data. Whether the outcome is amazing or terrible, revisiting exactly why a choice failed or succeeded builds up your conditional knowledge, guaranteeing you don't repeat the same misjudgments. At the end of the day, decision-making is a practice. It is not a personality trait. And you now have the exact blueprint to stop second-guessing yourself, neatly categorize your choices, and act with total conviction and structured clarity. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. When the noise gets really loud today, what model will you pull from your tool belt for your next high-stakes choice? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.